Okay, hi everyone. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. So good to have you here as we continue to talk about the object of devotion for observing the mind. I'm just going to jump right into it. Oh, if the audio sounds better, please let me know in the comments. Just a yes or no on the audio would be appreciated. I've been wrestling with this audio noise and all kinds of quality issues, and I'm trying a new mic with a new interface. Shout out to the production community out there online. Lots of advice. And I'm using a new interface now. But I'm also trying, this is tight quarters, and I've got a computer near the microphone, so there's some noise, but hopefully this will be better quality audio. So let me know, yes or no. Should I go back to the old mic? And now on to Buddhism, what we're all here for. Question: what about Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu? In the last video, we talked about the people's capacity and the time, and Nichiren answered with a lot of, as you remember, the question was very broken down and specific. So Nichiren gave a good answer, but he didn't cover every single little point. So the interrogator is saying there is a couple of people that stand out in the history of the scholarship of Buddhism, if you will. Nichiren being one, Tendai another, but around the turn of the millennium, you have Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu, whom I make references to all the time. Their work was incredible. On Nagarjuna's part, a very detailed analysis with back and forth using the argumentation method that I can never remember the name of, but it's an ad nauseum kind of attack or approach, I should say, on taking on a question and breaking it down into infinitesimal parts, and in order to elucidate an obvious, observable truth. Whereas Vasubandhu, who does arguably very much the same thing, but his argumentation is more about developing a sense of understanding broader concepts, I would say. Those two definitions may be unfair in some cases, but for me, Vasubandhu investigates the nature of large concepts in Buddhism, which you can also attribute to Nagarjuna, but the way Nagarjuna does it is with very specific, like self or emptiness, or what are those things, whereas Vasubandhu is more concerned with how we instantiate our humanity in samsara. So he talks about the skandhas and how they develop and how you can observe them to develop. I guess they just took different concepts to explore, but both of them amazing bodhisattvas of the Dharma. In that regard, it's quite reasonable to assume that because of all the concepts in Buddhism, even though they use their knowledge, their sense of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment, they used it in their argumentation, but they didn't spend time exploring that specifically. So when the questioner says, what about Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu? In other words, why didn't they say anything about the 3,000 realms in a single moment, thought moment, or moment of life, however you choose to interpret that? Well, they were in their analysis of concepts of Buddhism. They just didn't shift their analysis totally to that one concept. Buddhism, it ultimately sounds like a simple thing. You can make cliched little memes about what Buddhism is about, but in practicing it, that simplicity becomes more and more profound and more difficult to explain or understand. And so you end up going into this scholarship that dissects it so that there can be no misunderstanding about what that simplicity is really detailing, or not detailing, right? So, Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu, the answer right away from Nichiren is, those sages knew, but they did not expound it specifically. They expounded part of the theoretical teaching, but they did not expound either the essential teaching or the truth that the Buddha had observed in his mind. You see, they were more concerned with the teachings and validating the true meaning of those teachings than they were the actual experience that he had achieved, which is the 3,000 realms. Okay? Myoho Renge Kyo, if you will. Perhaps the people in their age were capable of believing it, but the time was not ripe to expound it. Or perhaps neither the people's capacity nor the time was appropriate. This isn't, see, words are tricky. This isn't to say that now, in this latter age, you and I are more capable of understanding enlightenment, but simply that there were so many other obstacles to realization in their day that to conceptualize this specific ultimate truth in the teachings was not at hand. They were struggling with other things. It's like saying, this may be a poor analogy, but an analogy nonetheless, we're certainly capable of going to school now in high school and learning very advanced mathematics because we had the good fortune growing up of being taught about numbers and multiplication tables and division and fractions and then pretty quickly onto algebraic concepts, right? Geometry and trigonometry and all of that. Whereas if you're dealing with the very same society, a very same time period, and you're in a culture or a place where education is sparse, hard to find, and people go on living. They find ways of dealing with certain problems that's very either colloquial or very simplified ways of thinking about problems. And you come to them, and they may be 20, 30 years old, and you start talking about geometry, and you're going to get a lot of tilted heads. They want to understand. It's not that they're not capable, it's that their capacity in their situation, their exposure, their readiness to get a concept may require backing off a little bit and coming into it slowly. Okay, so Buddhism was taught this way, to be universal, to reach everyone. Okay. After the advent of Tendai and Dengyo, many Buddhists learned of the doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single moment through the wisdom of these two sages. They included Chia Xian of the Three Treatises school, more than 100 priests of the 3 schools of the south and 7 schools of the north in China, Fa Xiang and Qing Liang of the Flower Garland school, the Tripitaka master Xuan Chang, and the great teacher Su En of the Dharma Characteristic school. The Tripitaka masters Shan Wu Wei, Qing Kang Chi, and Pu Kung of the True Word school, and Dao Chuan of the Precept school. At first, they all opposed Tendai, but later they totally accepted his teachings. Now, to dispel the grave doubts you have about Buddhahood within the human world, let's get back on task here, I refer you to the Immeasurable Meanings Sutra, which states, quote, "Good men, such persons are like a prince newly born to the king of a country and his queen. When he is 1 day, 2 days, or 7 days old, 1 month, 2 months, or 7 months old, 1 year, 2 years, or 7 years old, though he is not yet able to manage the affairs of state, already he is respected and looked up to by the ministers and the people. He is a companion to the sons of other great kings, and the king and queen love and dote on him, and are forever talking with him. Why? Because he is still just a child. Good men, the persons who uphold this sutra is like this. The Buddhas, who are the king, and the sutra, which is the queen, join together in harmony to give birth to this bodhisattva son. If the bodhisattva is able to hear this sutra, whether it is 1 line or 1 verse or 1 repetition, 2 repetitions, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, or immeasurable, countless repetitions, equal to the sands of 1,010,000 Ganges rivers, though he cannot fully grasp the extent of its truth, already he is revered and looked up to by all the 4 kinds of Buddhists and the 8 kinds of non-human beings, and he has the great bodhisattvas for his companions. He is constantly guarded and kept in mind by the Buddhas, who pity and love him, favor and shelter him, because he is new in these studies. So, again, very flowery way of talking about the commitment to your Buddhahood, your Buddha nature. Once you do that, whatever your level of knowledge or study, which, again, he says in this statement, that study is what leads you to greater and greater realization of the Buddha wisdom that brings you to your awakening. Because he is new in these studies, does not in any way diminish his Buddhahood. It's there. It's inherent. The Universal Worthy Sutra says, quote, "This great vehicle sutra is that," by the way, the Immeasurable Meanings Sutra you just mentioned, I took for granted that you would know, sorry, is the opening, or considered the opening sutra to the Lotus Sutra. Just thought I'd mention that. The Universal Worthy Sutra says, quote, "This great vehicle sutra is the treasured storehouse of the Buddhas, the eye of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 existences, the seed from which spring the thus come ones of the 3 existences. You should practice the great vehicle and never let the seed of Buddhahood die out," end quote. It also declares, quote, "This correct and equal sutra is the eye of the Buddhas. It is through this sutra that the Buddhas are able to acquire the 5 types of vision. A Buddha's 3 types of bodies are born from this correct and equal sutra, which is the great seal of the law that assures entry into the sea of nirvana. It is from this sea that a Buddha's 3 types of pure bodies are born. These 3 types of bodies are fields of good fortune for human and heavenly beings." So again, a lot of flowery hyperbole. All of this is about Buddha wisdom, which I've already explained is our samsaric brain's capability and mind, our human mind's capability of accessing this Buddha mind. But the wisdom is how to transcend our human mind to awaken to that Buddha mind. Our human mind doesn't go away. It's just that we develop our own paths through it to perceive Buddha-ness. Make sense? Now we should go on to survey the entire range of the Thus Come One Shakyamuni's teachings, the exoteric and esoteric, as well as Hinayana and Mahayana, and specifically the sutras on which each school, such as the Flower Garland and the True Word, depends on for its doctrine. For example, the Flower Garland Sutra describes Vairocana Buddha seated on the lotus petal, extending in the 10 directions. The Great Collection Sutra, a cloud of Buddhas who had gathered together. The Wisdom Sutra, the emergence of 1,000 Buddhas teaching the non-duality of pure and impure, and the Mahavarachana and Diamond Crown Sutras, the more than 1,200 honored ones. These sutras all explain the past practices of Shakyamuni Buddha and the Buddhahood he consequently attained in this life, but they do not reveal the original cause for his enlightenment in the remote past. It is true that the immediate attainment of Buddhahood is revealed in the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings, but they do not mention Shakyamuni Buddha teaching his disciples since major world system dust particle kalpas ago, or numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago. Whew, they love their calculations, don't they? Therefore, no revelation is made of when the Buddha started teaching or when he finished. The Flower Garland Sutra seems to belong to the higher two, and the Mahavarachana Sutra to all of the 4 teachings, the Tripitaka connecting specific and perfect teachings. But these sutras actually fall into the category of the Tripitaka and connecting teachings, the 2 lower of the 4, because they do not expound the 3 inherent potentials of the Buddha nature. Then, how can we define these sutras as the seeds of enlightenment? I'm curious. What do they have to say? Innate Buddhahood, the wisdom to perceive it, and the deeds that cause the Buddha nature to develop. So what is taken as meaning here of the Tripitaka being the lower 4 because they do not expound the 3 inherent potentials of the Buddha nature is that although they go into detail about the Buddha's exploits, they don't expose the method that he used by which to attain for anyone the Buddha nature. It's an earlier teaching. It's math tables. It's not calculus. We're not there yet. The translators of the newer versions of the sutras learned about Tendai's doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life when they came to China. When they translated Sanskrit sutras into Chinese, some put Tendai's principle into their translations, and others claimed that the originals they had brought from India already contained it. Some of the scholars of the Tendai school were simply pleased that other schools were expounding the same doctrine as theirs, while others praised the Buddhism of India and slighted that of China, or discarded their original doctrines and adopted new ones. These scholars yield to their devilish nature and to foolishness. Ultimately, however, without the seeds of Buddhahood, that is, the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, sentient beings cannot become Buddhas, and any statue or painting would be an object of devotion in name only. It'd be powerless as an object to observe the mind. It would simply be worship, which is not what we do. I have a video on that. Question. You've not fully answered my question about the 10 worlds, Buddhahood in particular, being inherent in the human world. Okay. Answer. The Immeasurable Meaning Sutra states, quote, although they have not yet been able to practice the 6 paramitas The six paramitas will of themselves appear before them, end quote. The Lotus Sutra says, quote, all wish to hear the teaching of perfect endowment, end quote. The Nirvana Sutra states, quote, sad of Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. Sad indicates perfect endowment, end quote. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna comments, sad signifies six. The profound meaning of the four Mahayana treatises states sad connotes six. In India, the number six implies perfect endowment. In his commentary, Chitsang writes, quote, sad is translated as perfect endowment, end quote. The great teacher Tendai remarks, quote, sad is a Sanskrit word which is translated as myo, or wonderful. If I add my own interpretation, it will be as if I had profaned these passages. But in essence, they mean that Shakyamuni's practices and the virtues he consequently attained are all contained within the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo. If we believe in these 5 characters, we will naturally be granted the same benefits as he was. Just translate, believe in 5 characters. Words again get in our way. The Myoho Renge Kyo, what he's essentially saying here, are characters developed of the insights of all the teachings of Buddhism. All of the sutras and commentaries lead you to a profound understanding of Buddhism, and they're captured in their main attributes as these characters, Myoho Renge and Kyo. 5. And this gets repeated in a lot of ways. The 5 periods of teachings, the ad nauseum. So this is what he means by, or the translation is saying, as belief in these 5 characters is to inculcate these concepts contained in these 5 characters is the entire practice of Buddhism and the entire practice of Buddha's or Shakyamuni's own enlightenment. And the enlightenment of all Buddhas, if you will, because that's everyone. All sentient and insentient beings have this Buddha-ness, and this is the path to it. So, you can memorize and repeat and get benefit from it, as he was saying earlier, simply because you're making the effort. But as you know, I'm a strong proponent for myself, firstly, that if I'm to really explore the depth of meaning in these 5 characters, it requires that I study the scholarship of Buddhism. And guess what? Shakyamuni exhorted his students to do this all the time. Study all of Buddhism and non-Buddhist teachings. And your wisdom to Buddha, let's say it that way. Instead of Buddha wisdom, think wisdom to Buddha-ness will come to you. It will come to you through your own insights. And as you discuss with others, somehow, your insights will come faster because you will have other criticality about the same words that you're all trying to use to talk about something that's very difficult to understand. By chipping away at your own perceptions. Only other people can do that much more quickly than you can, because they will ask you questions that you would not ask yourself. And it is through questioning that we arrive at insights. That's what this is all about. With the confidence, more accurately, that it is there for you. That your Buddhism awaits in a way, but it's already here. So this is the wrestling match going on here between question and answer. Confidence. Building a resolute mind. How can I build a resolute mind if I don't buy it, that it's there for me? That I'm just going to have to die and reborn and endlessly before I can get this, because only certain special people can get it. No, that's not Buddhism. It's universal. So that's the dance here. With full understanding of Shakyamuni's teachings, the four great voice hearers said, quote, "This cluster of unsurpassed jewels has come to us unsought," end quote. Bing, aha, right? They represent the world of the voice hearer that is within ourselves. I mean, he's really spelling it out here. The Buddha stated, quote, "At the start I took a vow, hoping to make all persons equal to me, without any distinction between us. And what I long ago hoped for has now been fulfilled. I have converted all living beings and caused them all to enter the Buddha way." End quote. Shakyamuni Buddha, who has attained perfect enlightenment, is our own flesh and blood. His practices and the resulting virtues are our bones and marrow. The treasure tower chapter of the Lotus Sutra says, quote, "He who is capable of guarding the law of this sutra will thereby have offered alms to me and to many treasures. One who guards this sutra will also have offered alms to the emanation Buddhas who have come here adorning and making brilliant all the various worlds." End quote. Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions represent the world of Buddhahood within ourselves. So I've been saying this in so many ways. Nichiren is spelling it out here. All of these emanations, these expedient means to understand the innumerable various paths to their specific enlightenment, all these Buddhas, they're you and I. They represent, in the expedient means of the the provisional sutras from day one to Lotus, they represent our mental processes, our minds, our samsaric minds, paths and ways of achieving the wisdom to perceive our own Buddha-ness. Buddhahood. Buddha. By searching them out within us, we can receive the benefits of all these Buddhas. This is what is meant by the following passage, quote, "If one listens to them, the preachers of the law, for even a moment, one will immediately attain supreme perfect enlightenment," because it's guaranteed, is what this means. The lifespan chapter reads, quote, "It has been immeasurable, boundless, hundreds, thousands, 10,000 million nayutas, kalpas, since I in fact attained Buddhahood." Why does he say that? He wants to get people to stop thinking in such an immediate way and understand that Buddha is not him or any other personage, that it's in terms of time, and I don't like to use words like this, but it's eternal. In other words, it's always present in every process of life. Life itself is the process of Buddha-ness. This is a huge statement. The Shakyamuni Buddha within our lives is the eternal Buddha since time without beginning. There it is. Who obtained the 3 bodies more than numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago. The lifespan chapter states, quote, "Originally I practiced the Bodhisattva way, and the lifespan that I acquired then has yet to come to an end, but will last twice the number of years that have already passed. He was speaking of the world of the Bodhisattva within ourselves. The Bodhisattvas, as numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds who emerge from beneath the earth, are the followers of the Shakyamuni Buddha present in our lives. They follow the Buddha just as Tai Kwang, Wang, and Tan, the Duke of Chao, served as ministers to King Wu of the Chao dynasty and later assisted his son and successor, the infant King Chang, or just as the chief minister Takenokuchi supported Empress Jingu and later her grandson, Crown Prince Nitoku, as a highly valued minister. The Bodhisattva superior practices, boundless practices, pure practices, and firmly established practices represent the world of the Bodhisattvas within us. He's breaking down these emanations, these characterizations, these personages, and telling you what they represent in the teachings. These are all about you, he's telling his questioner. So how can you doubt that this isn't in you? This is all what this is talking about. The great teacher Miao Lo says, quote, "You should understand that one's life and its environment at a single moment encompass the 3,000 realms. Therefore, when one attains the Buddha way, one puts oneself in accord with this fundamental principle, and one's body and mind at a single moment pervade the entire realm of phenomena." Not just human being, all phenomena, anything you can describe or, as I often say, identify, distinguish, make this distinct. Where are we time-wise? Eyesight. I miss it so. First, at his place of enlightenment, Shakyamuni Buddha preached the flower garland in which he revealed the Lotus treasury world, what it's like to awaken. In the following 50 years, until he entered nirvana in the grove of sal trees, Shakyamuni preached about the lands of the various Buddhas, such as the Lotus treasury world and the land of secret solemnity in the Secret Solemnity Sutra, revealed the 3 kinds of lands when he 3 times purified countless lands in the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra, and revealed the 4 kinds of lands according to the 4 different views in the Nirvana Sutra. These lands, the land of transition, the land of actual reward, and the land of tranquil light, the land of peace and sustenance, the pure emerald world, the land of secret solemnity, and the lands of all the other Buddhas, are transient lands that change in the course of the kalpas of formation, continuance, decline, and disintegration. The Buddhas of these lands had been magically conjured by Shakyamuni Buddha. In other words, they were teaching inventions to facilitate conceptual transmission. And when the Lord of Teachings entered nirvana, all these Buddhas likewise entered extinction. They are not independent things. They are inventions of Shakyamuni in order to teach and bring people to understand profound concepts about your and I, is that right, own mind, mental lives in samsara. In the same way, their lands also vanished as separate things. The Saha world, Shakyamuni Buddha revealed in the Lifespan chapter, is the eternal pure land, impervious to the 3 calamities or the cycles of the 4 kalpas. The Buddha neither has entered into extinction in the past, nor will he be born in the future, and the same is true of his disciples. This means that their lives are perfectly endowed with the 3,000 worlds, that is, with the 3 realms of existence. The Buddha did not reveal this truth in the theoretical teaching or the first 14 chapters of the Lotus Sutra because The time was not right, and the people's capacity was not yet developed. Shakyamuni Buddha did not transmit the 5 characters of Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, or I should just say Myoho Renge Kyo, the heart of the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra, even to the Bodhisattvas, Manjushri, and Medicine King, let alone to any lesser disciples. He summoned from beneath the earth the great Bodhisattvas, as numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds, and, as he preached the 8 chapters, transferred it solely to them. The second half, in the second half of the Lotus. That's us, Bodhisattvas of the earth. He didn't transmit Myoho Renge Kyo to his stories. You see? He transmitted them to us, founded in real life, this earth, this samsaric reality. We're the ones to discover Buddhahood, not these provisional teaching tools. I mean, it makes obvious sense to us now, but thousands of years ago, not so much. People were accustomed to authoritarian rule and putting all the power of even Aristotle had a problem with this, because his teacher saw leadership as a specially endowed of the gods incarnation, if you will. And people were used to thinking this way. The true object of devotion is described as follows. The treasure tower sits in the air above the Saha world that the Buddha of the essential teaching identified as the pure and eternal land. This is what Nichiren captured in characterization on this scroll, this Gohonzan, the treasure tower. Myoho Renge Kyo appears in the center of the tower with the Buddhas Shakyamuni and many treasures seated to the right and left, and flanking them, the 4 Bodhisattvas, followers of Shakyamuni, led by superior practices Manjushri, Maitreya, and the other Bodhisattvas, who are all followers of the 4 Bodhisattvas, are seated below. Check out the Shute Gohonzan, threefoldlotus.com. You'll see all of this described. It's on this Gohonzan. So he's describing Gohonzan, or the making of, if you will. Again, a tool, not a thing imbued, but a tool to represent these aspects of the complete teaching of Buddhism, the ultimate teaching. All the other major and minor bodhisattvas, whether they are disciples of the Buddha in his transient status or of the Buddhas of the other worlds, are like commoners kneeling on the ground in the presence of nobles and high-ranking court officials. The Buddhas who gathered from the other worlds in the 10 directions all remain on the ground, showing that they are only temporary manifestations of the eternal Buddha, and that their lands are transient, not eternal and unchanging. During the entire 50 years of Shakyamuni's teaching, only the last 8 years did he preach the 28 chapters of the Lotus Sutra. Again, of all these chapters, only in the 8 chapters did he reveal and transfer the object of devotion to bodhisattvas of the earth. Again, object, think of it as a verb, not a thing. During the 2 millennia of the former and middle days of the law, statues were made showing Mahakashyapa and Ananda flanking the Shakyamuni Buddha of Hinayana, and Manjushri and Universal Worthy flanking the Shakyamuni Buddha of the provisional Mahayana, the Nirvana Sutra, and the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Even though statues and paintings were made of these Shakyamuni Buddhas during the 2 millennia, no image or statue was made of the Buddha of the lifespan chapter. Only in the latter day of the law will the representation of that Buddha appear. Question. Should we do another question? This is probably good enough. We'll continue with this next question in the next video. Excuse me, so rude. I am, after all, just a man. It's so funny. All right. Well, that was quite a lot today, I think. So I'm marking my page dutifully, and that'll give me some reading material for later. And we will continue with the object of devotion for observing the mind in the 500-year period after Shakyamuni's passing. Again, thank you so much. If you can, please go to my website, donate, go to Patreon, and become a subscriber. You can become an adopter of my channel on Cocoscope. But most importantly, keep watching and develop your practice. And ask me questions. Challenge me. I'm not done growing. I've been doing this 40 years, and I will do this until I stop being able to do it. So I hope this encourages you. And, as I keep saying lately, with the world in its state at the moment, we really need to focus on our practice. It should be the center from which the rest of our life is experienced. Because it is the source. It is what we're here to do. Be excellent beings. Be constantly aware, awakened. It makes everything easier, I promise you. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.